Welcome back to the Running on Grass podcast. I am your co-host, Logan Pribbino, here with Eamon O'Toole. How we doing this morning, Eamon?
I'm good. How's things going today, Logan?
Good. This is the camper edition of Running on Grass.
That's right. I'm in my camper. My kids are at the county fair this week, so we brought our steers up here, and we have weigh-ins this afternoon, and I think the show's on Thursday, so we're just kind of getting settled in here at county fair. What are you up to?
We are in beautiful Iowa City.
Nice.
Do you know it rains here in Iowa?
That's something to do with that east of the 100th meridian idea, right?
Yeah, it is so green and lush and beautiful. Like the corn plants don't look like mine at all. So it's actually, and my mother is from Iowa, so I yearn for the rains.
We're so far removed from back there. My great-great-grandfather was from Illinois. Otherwise, we've lost the ability to understand what rain coming down regularly is
you're
like.
Enough generations removed that you can't comprehend, the rainfall of Illinois or the I-State's rainfall.
No. In fact, I don't know if you saw it. I sent you a thing that I saw this morning. Colorado, I think, is number one in the country for driest of poor to very poor at 76%, and Wyoming is 1% behind them at 75%. And I think was Nebraska number 3. And it's just, it's pretty tough here right now. We haven't had a really good rain. Like that 600s we had, was enough to kind of settle the dust, but it didn't do it.
Yeah, we've been missing them too. I've just been watching them die right at my place. That's really on my mind. We're going to probably start grazing some dryland corn. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the heat. We had the most extreme heat we've ever had in Nebraska. We're going to talk about that. There was significant feedlot death loss. Talk about ladder, what it means without the lack of water. And today we're going to talk about managing drought, what it looks like to graze off your dryland corn, what it looks like to utilize your short warm season covers. It's a little bit different. And then we're going to talk about genetics, really get into heat tolerant genetics, particularly African genetics. Some of the breeds that Cooper Hibbert has experimented with. We're going to talk about Jan Bosema and Johann Zeitzman as well there at the end. And just the theme of this episode is drought, heat, and managing our way through it.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the general idea across the West right now anyway.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very topical for a lot of people. A lot of people are dealing with this, and it'll be maybe useful to just have them listen to how we manage through it. But first, speaking of drought, managing your way through it, PRF is one of the tools that we use at Wineglass and also at Ladder, and Eastco can help you with it. Eastco is a rancher-owned, rancher-focused insurance agency specializing in PRF, LRP, and annual forage. Eastco doesn't do a lot of marketing, but they just love us at Running on Grass. So reach out to JW or Jen by emailing info@eastcogroup.com or just visit eastcogroup.com. I can't imagine going through this process without annual forage insurance for my cover crops and my dual purpose wheat or PRF for the range.
Yeah, I actually got the email yesterday saying that we were making some money, and I was pretty excited about it. Nothing's guaranteed, but it's basically an insurance policy. And boy, it was exciting yesterday to get an email saying that we were out of the red into the black and things look good.
Yeah, that is always a relief. And I'm old enough to have ranched without when the government helped you with the drought and the PRF insurance. And what's the government program? LDP?
I think that's right.
I remember when that came out, they released the payments, that started in 2012, but I don't think they made those payments till 2014, if I remember right. And, a lot of people look at that and they're like, oh, that's kind of a handout to the rancher. And you know what the number one thing that does is it keeps my staff on board. When I hit a drought, I need to figure out how to cut machinery expense. I need to figure out how to cut payroll. I need to figure out how to just reduce my overheads by a chunk. And in corporate America, they know that the best way to do it is you just lay off a chunk of people. And the LDP really allows us to just maintain the staff through a drought. And that's been one of the nice things about that program. And then you can stack PRF on top of that and you can actually get a little bit back.
Absolutely. I can't imagine not having it right now as tight as things are with water and trying to figure out where we're going to put things. And it's also, I think, a bigger picture beyond, just staff is it's going to help maybe cover some of those costs for when you need to move animals early and get them into a feedlot or wherever that is to get them down to the next step so you don't have to liquidate.
Yeah. In a drought, you just need money coming from different things. In 2022, we had that bad drought. I sold a nice tractor, nice Challenger tractor, and didn't replace it. Sold 2 tractors, replaced 1. Long-term droughts, you have to adjust your overheads to match the carrying capacity. And that is probably one of the most difficult parts about the drought. And for me, this is a year that ends in 6, and those are wet years for us. And so I'm just kind of perplexed. It's like, I kind of had last year was a great year for us. And I was like, okay, we're entering the rainy half of this decade. And it's just kind of been a little bit of a rug pull for me.
It came a year early for you. You had the big wet year in 25, and 26 has been rough. And I'm really at a point where I knew I could get through this year generally running as normal and I could make it, but it's trying, and we are pulling out stops and we are grazing pastures we haven't touched in years. And we're, really looking for every extra acre that we can put an animal on right now and trying to find water that will go with it. We're in the middle of trying to get some water projects in so we can graze some. I probably have 3-ish thousand acres around my headquarters that have no water in those pastures, and trying to figure out there's lots of grass in there. I had enough spring rain that really made a lot of grass, but we have too many animals to be hauling water to them. And we need to come up with something that is like a continuous water system or get them on something that has flowing water. And we just don't have that in a lot of these places. So trying to figure out where to get these animals to, putting in water systems that we haven't had before, things like that. But drilling wells in the mountains isn't historically successful because that's where the water starts. It's not where it gathers. So out in the desert, usually your wells do well because the water has come down, it's gone into the system in the mountains, and then it's gathered into these pools or underground rivers, whatever those are in the desert, and you can hit those and usually have some good wells. But I have a neighbor who did some wells at his mountain place. It's neighbor's mine, and he had one that was like 3 gallons a minute, one that was like 5. And that when you're running, 1,000 yearlings, that doesn't do you any good. That's actually kind of almost puts you in a worse bind because it makes you think you can use it. And then they go in there for about 20 minutes and all of a sudden you're out of water and you're not going to be filled up for another day.
So what are you going to do to get those acres utilized this year? Or is it an option?
Right now, I'm going to put in like a cool continuous, I have a little creek that runs by, and I'm going to pull some water, and I think I'm going to try and do a 3-inch line out of that into 2 water tanks. That will just be a flowing system, so it'll flow out of that little creek into the tank, into the next tank, so we have enough space for all the cattle, and then back into that creek and just have a continuous flowing system. So I got good clean water and on 3-inch line, which is what I have on my pivots, and that seems to be enough water to keep in front of them and good clean all the time. So that's the plan right now, and we'll see if I can get it implemented fast enough to use it. But I'm gonna do a graze on my alfalfa. So they're today, tomorrow in some hay meadows. And then we're going to go to alfalfa. And I've got some reprieve pasture that we left extra when we went through the second time. And we're going to go through there. And so if we have to get off the alfalfa, we can get down to there. If we have a dewy night or rain or something happens, then we can get off that alfalfa. Otherwise, we're going to have probably, I'm hoping as much as a week, maybe on the alfalfa. And then I'm going to go up the creek and I'm going to do a third graze on my meadows and try and stay on the meadows as long as possible. And I think it's warm enough and I still have water in the river and we're not a long way. We're probably a month away from the cottonwood trees releasing their water as they start to shed their leaves, and that'll bring the river up and I'll be able to get back to giving more water into those pastures. And then I'll have about another month of rest on those meadows before I can bring my cows in the fall.
At Ladder, is the problem more lack of grass or lack of watering capacity during a drought like this?
On my meadows, it's neither really. It's just kind of the timing of letting the rest recovery happen. In my rangeland, it's absolutely water. Like we had some great rains, April, May, that really kicked us off. I have pastures and I just look at the grass in there and I'm salivating because I can't use it. I have thousands of acres with no water. Reservoirs are all dry. Springs that run through the pastures are all dry. Just nothing there. So it's going to be tough and it's going to be tight, but I think we're going to make it. I got to get 27 more days. So I'm counting down the days and trying to figure out where I can put an animal every day.
Sure. So long term, is water infrastructure projects part of your dealing with drought going forward? Not this year necessarily, but as you look 10 years out?
Ladder Ranch is always every year doing some water projects somewhere. And, we've talked before, we have quite a few acres. And so we're spread out from north of I-80 all the way to north of Steamboat. There is a part of our ranch that we're doing a water project on every year somewhere, whether that's cleaning a pond in the forest or drilling a well. This spring, actually, we've talked about it before. I did 2 tanks, and that allowed me to use, I have a ranch that's like about 40,000 acres, and I didn't use it last year because I had no water on it. And I thought, well, we'll have a winter. I'll go back to normal. And that didn't happen. So I went ahead and put in 2 water tanks because I had no choice. Otherwise, I was going to not have a place to calve a bunch of cows. And like it calves 350 cows for me. And I had no place to go with those cows unless I left them in Nebraska and had to pay that. So I ran the numbers and it was cheaper for me to put in the water system than it was to leave those cows somewhere and get them back later in the summer. So it was a long-term infrastructure project that paid for itself year one.
That's awesome. What was the cost? How did you do it? Why just the 2 tanks?
So they're spread out over about a half mile from each other. And I have a spring there that is fantastic. So we ran the line about a mile to the first tank and then another quarter to half mile to the second tank. And they're on my private land that is adjacent. So we basically just stuck them barely inside the private land so that we could do the projects without having to go through the federal land nexus. And then we just opened up that fence into our private land.
So is it a solar pump?
Yep, it's set up on a solar, which doesn't always work great because you do get cloudy days, but it seemed to work really well this year. We don't have cloudy days because it doesn't ever rain. So
What kind of tanks are they?
they're 14-foot big tire tanks that are, come off those mass pieces of equipment at coal mines and big operation machinery equipment they use. 14-foot diameter, and then put the plumbing into them and then concrete around that and the tire. So it's all concrete in the center. And then there's like a plastic corrugated pipe that comes up out of the center, and that's where all your plumbing is. So you just need to wear some irrigation boots or something to get in there if you're going to mess with it. Well, it's got water in it, but works pretty good. They work really good, and that's what we've been putting in a lot of. And we have a local guy that has an oil field company that's really good at doing that, and he's done it for a lot of ranches all over. There's a great FSA program right now that's putting in wells, tanks, and lines in this drought. I recommend everybody get a hold of your local FSA person and start looking for how to get in more water tanks and lines, and they're paying for it. So get a hold of them if you want to get some stuff in.
Over the last 2 weeks, we just hammered them out, some tire tanks and then some of these new 15 feet fiberglass tanks that we're moving towards.
That works so good. And we're putting in 2 new wells. Actually, we're just waiting on the well driller on another piece of property we have closer to the interstate. And it was another place. I can calve another 300 cows there, and I couldn't this year because I had no water in it. So we ended up leaving them in Nebraska with you because I couldn't use any of that country. So we're going to put 2 wells in there, water tanks right at the wells. And then I talked to my BLM guy. He said, yeah, let's get together this fall, winter, and we'll get the paperwork done so you can start running water lines because it's checkerboard. So every other section's private and then BLM. So we've got to, if you want to send it anywhere, you got to get permission from the BLM, but it'll be really good long term, and I'll be able to kind of get back to using that country.
Do you get a concrete truck back there, or do you have to mix it yourself?
I've got some tanks in places that I can't believe that somebody driving that concrete truck probably was able to hold it down because of the weight of his testicles.
Yeah. So we always did not use a concrete truck, but we did on the tail end of this project. And I guess I just did not have in my mind that a concrete truck could go the places that it can go. And
Yeah, same.
looking back, I would have poured a lot more concrete knowing that. And of course, Zane Mays' dad runs the concrete plant. And so he kind of has some gravitas and getting back there and whatnot. I think he's willing to go some places that the other guys were just pretty much highway dwellers. So that was kind of a paradigm shift for me. Because if you can get a concrete truck back there, more power to you. But when you're mixing it in buckets, that's a different job.
We've done it both ways. I've had guys go up there, trailers on the back of a tractor and pallets of concrete and hand mixed it in buckets. And we've done that before too. But I think you've been there, that tank up above where I would run your steers at my place in Dixon, Wyoming. I go up that in a 4-wheeler and I'm like, this is pretty steep.
Yes.
And I can't even imagine how a concrete truck did that.
Yeah, you took me up there. I can't imagine how you got a concrete, because if you can get a concrete truck up there, there's not many places on Wineglass where we couldn't. But again, I just didn't have that in my head. And Zane sent a picture of us mixing concrete to his dad. And his dad's like, what are you doing? It's like, I can get back there and pour it for about the same price you guys are doing it for. And I'm like, really? It's like, I didn't know that. Like, let's do this.
And have it done in a morning.
Yeah. He filled 4 tanks that were not close in a half day.
Yeah. It's amazing. You could probably start a concrete business out in Imperial, Nebraska if you were willing to drive concrete trucks into places most people won't go.
Well, yeah, now of course they will do that, but I'm a slow learner, Eamon. I think that's the lesson here.
Yeah, same. Everything I've learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Tell me, you had 106 degrees and humidity?
Yeah, so we're in this really weird heat dome, no rain, high humidity situation in Southwest Nebraska. And there's a lot of feeding capacity in Southwest Nebraska. Our heat indices were over 110, which when we're dry, it's just never humid. Like we are in such a weird weather pattern. It's just hot and humid and it's not raining. And to give you guys perspective, I've talked to several of the feedlot owners in the county and outside the county, and fat death loss was 1 to 2%. Everyone was digging a hole. They lost so many of their fats that they were just digging a dedicated hole. And I asked a couple friends and neighbors and just heard from other people too that I was like, when was the last time that happened? It's like never. And 2, sometimes the blizzards, the government will cover it, but in these heat situations, there's no government program. And so these guys are taking it on the chin with their fat losses. And obviously that is the most expensive time to have an animal die, is 30 to 60 days before you sell them. And so it's kind of a double whammy for those guys. So it's been unprecedented heat here in Southwest Nebraska.
Jeez. I don't know if it had anything to do with heat, but we were in the steer barn here at the fair yesterday, and there's a kid that lost 2 steers within a month of fair. I think the heat has a lot to do with it. And I've heard of some other people's steers not making weight, just too hot. This comes with things that you and I aren't used to, which I want it to lead us into talking about African cattle.
So I have been researching it. While I'm in Africa, I will be researching several of the breeds and trying to figure out which one to add to our cross for heat tolerance in particular. And it's one of my big projects while I'm over there, and I'm going to visit some ranches. I already have some scheduled and see a lot of the cattle breeds in that setting and figure out which, if any, and I'm certain there'll be some to add to our core genetics of our cow herd. And what Burke Teichert's idea of what's the worst day for a cow at Wineglass, and without a doubt, it's 106 degrees. We're trying to breed her. She's milking a calf, and it's by far the most challenging day. And on Burke Teichert's advice, he didn't recommend any breeds in particular, but he said, figure out the most challenging day for the cow at your place and then explore the breeds that can help you do it.
Yeah, I get a little bit of brisket in those cows.
Yeah, not too much. It's a delicate balance.
Little hump, little brisket.
Yeah. And you guys have had unprecedented heat too this year, haven't you?
We have, and I was talking to some people I grew up with in our valley, and we were just saying, when we were kids, if it got 85, that was so hot. And that's why when I go to Nebraska to help you brand and it gets above 85, I'm crying. And hot and it's humid. And it's just what I grew up with. In the mountains, it was never even hardly 85. And now we see 97, 98 at our mountain ranch daily. And I think I brought up before, our forest up at 8,500, 9,000 feet is 95 degrees at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And then when you tell me that grass starts being stressed at, is it 86?
86.
86 degrees. And then I put up a video on Facebook and Instagram the other day, and you can see how dry the grass is. And that's at about 8,000 feet. And it just looks tough. And then you don't put any water on it. And it really is. I can't believe we haven't had more fires in Wyoming, but every state around us is. In fact, our valley is just socked in with smoke right now from
Same.
all the Washington, Oregon, Utah. And then we've had some local fires south of us in Colorado. But I think all that smoke's just coming from Northwest.
Is that heat that you're experiencing this year, or is it a long-term trend?
I would say it's progressively getting more every year. Like it would be, I would say 2, 3 years ago, we were like, man, it's 90. It is hot. And now here we are, just every day is in the mid 90s.
And what will you do to deal with that going forward? Then we kind of hit on the water projects. Is there anything else that you need to do to kind of deal with that heat?
I should be doing what you're doing, and I haven't even thought about it until you and I started talking about it. You and Cooper are way ahead of me. I almost got some bulls from Cooper that had some African stuff in them, and then I ended up going this other direction doing the Jorgensen stuff. But I think that you guys are on the right track, and everybody should be thinking more, how do we put in some Barzona or something like that into our cows with these African breeds or South American or something, because it seems like this is here to stay.
Yeah. And also with the African breeds. So my dad really likes the Hereford Angus cross. And then we added the Continental, which is supposed to be a really good hybrid vigor. Imagine switching from British breeds. We added some French breeds. Imagine the heterosis you're going to get when you add a different continent on there. I'm kind of most excited about that. And I don't think our listeners know, genetics is my weak spot. I'm a grass forage guy / farmer. I'm more about the plant, agronomy, soil health, all that. Kind of the last piece for me is the genetics. And I inherited that from my father. My father forbid me to show cattle growing up in 4-H. He said, you're going to get the wrong idea about what a cow is for. So he kind of instilled that into me. And when I came back, I was kind of thinking about it. And one of the things my dad told me that still sticks with me today, for decades, the breeders and the registered herds have talked about improving the breed and moving it forward. And he said, it's been all bullshit. He said, you can give me any cow herd from the 1970s. I could run it today and it wouldn't affect my profitability one bit. So it's kind of, for me, the last frontier, and I'm excited to get into it. And then also, just concluding thought, TJ's been really good at it and has the same philosophy as my dad, and he's really helped fill that as we've taken on some of these genetic projects. Where are you with genetics?
Well, first I'll say this. You and I have both been to Cooper Hibbert's, and he is significantly into genetics and has, 7 different breeds in his cows, something like that?
Yeah, he's
And
got some Shorthorn, Gelbvieh, Sim, Hereford Angus, of course. And then he's experimented with a few of the Africans, the Sanga type, which is the cross between the Bos Indicus and Bos Taurus, where they try to minimize the visuals of the Bos Indicus.
yep. And where I'm going is, I look at his cows and they look like beautiful black cows. There are a few outliers that have like some sort of off coloring or look a little different. But for the mass majority, his cows look like your cows and my cows. Like
Yes.
they just look like Angus cows or whatever. So that's to say that you can say, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to screw up the look of my cattle. I got to keep my calves black or red or whatever that is. Cooper is a living example of doing it. And he's selling his calves and doing as well or better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that, we as producers just need to step out of our comfort zone and say, we can still have great cattle. We just need to figure out what's going to work best for the environment that we're all moving or living into. So I just want to throw that out there for all of us. Let's open our minds a little bit and think we don't have to be stuck in the single breed or just one cross situation when there's a guy like Cooper out there that's really doing it.
Yeah, and then the origin story there is Radakovich's were in WRM with his uncle and got that ranch into crossbred bulls. And he's kind of taken it from there. And we went up to visit Cooper. Burke Teicher suggests that we go and look at the intensity that he's grazing on a mountain ranch, because we complain about Paulie on our plains ranch, and you go up to visit Cooper to see what he's doing and you don't complain as much. And then also the genetics as well. Uh,
You look at an operation like Cooper's, and what I experienced moving your heifers around with collars on the other day, it opens up so much country that I just couldn't use. And now Cooper's already using it, but he's got guys out there moving Polly to do it. And he's fighting the deer and the elk and grizzly bears and things too. But now he can move those cattle around with collars if he wanted to go that direction. And it would probably change his staffing big time, just like it's going to do mine.
I think for those you guys in the mountain ranches, the collars are
Game changers.
game changers.
Yeah.
And that's why you're seeing way broader adoption, at least on those places for now.
Yeah, I think that's right. You guys have it relatively easy compared to the stuff we're doing up here. So, what we're doing with genetics is we've got quite a few Baldies in our herd. We Angus Hereford cross, pretty normal, nothing crazy. And we just haven't made that leap that we need to. But it's interesting to see, I've got a cow that can live on corn stalks in the winter. She can calve on the desert on this really tough stuff that looks like Mongolia. And then I'd take her up to the mountains to 9,000 feet, and she does great there too. So I've got a really cool cow that can do a lot of things and can kind of live about anywhere, at least in the West, but she doesn't have that genetic portfolio we're talking about.
Yeah, and we found out that your cows can get it done on the sandhills too, which we were really worried about after the whole Three Forks Schwannebeck ordeal.
Yeah, and you and I had that conversation and thought we don't want these cows to fall off, especially after they've got a calf on them, and knowing the other deal that happened. And we went out there and it was the fattest my cows have ever been. I looked at them and I said, I didn't know that cow could get that big.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The management, not me, but TJ and Braden were proactive in that, just knowing that, hey, these might fall off. And then the other thing you and I talked about was, man, June 21st, get them out of here. Because, that's when heat comes and the grass falls off and things kind of change.
Yeah, we both stuck to that plan. We got them out of there right, kind of what we considered the last minute we wanted to be there. And I brought them here and I put them right on the national forest. And so their quality of feed never fell off.
Which helps.
Yeah. So I know you just did your AI project and did some cool stuff with yours, and you're kind of going to be getting those first calves on the ground next year. And then what will you do with those genetics? This is a one and done for you. Then you're going to take those bull calves and start spreading that around.
Yeah, so we chose to put a lot of calving on. 1 year here, we're going to develop a lot of heifers and keep them. And I don't know what year that'll be, but that's kind of the idea. And so we just wanted a lot of crossbred calving bulls with different crossbred background, and have a bull battery ready for when the price of heifers drops sufficiently low that we can build back at scale.
I think you're thinking a lot further than most producers think out. Most guys are thinking, how do I take advantage of this year's prices? What do I do maybe to be in line for next year? But nobody's thinking 5 to 10 years out. And I think that that's a important piece that we all need to be putting into perspective of what that looks like in 5 to 10 years.
With how we run Wineglass, with trying to play a 10-year plan, I do typically need to be thinking 10 years out for what that looks like. And I do communicate that with my dad, my team. Jeremy Martin is kind of our ranch. He's a nutritionist, but he's really a ranch ops consultant. And we cover the big ideas with him. And he's great for that, by the way. We need to get Great Plains on as a sponsor, but I am constantly thinking 10 years out. And I think as a CEO of a ranch, if you're not thinking at least 5 years out, you're doing your ranch and yourself a disfavor.
I think that's right. And for me, we think that far out, but we haven't been doing it as much on the animal side as we've been doing it on the succession side. And what does this ranch look like in 10 years? Where do my sister and I fit? Are we still here? Are we just here as summer help and the kids are running it? How does that look? So
Yeah, and there's going to be a unique thing every 5 or 10 years. Succession's kind of not as important at Wineglass right now, but 10 years down the road, it's probably going to be a very big deal. And I was talking to a listener who's thinking about getting his two daughters back online, and it's top of mind for him, and he's thinking about it.
yeah, it's a never ending thing. Like succession planning is a never ending book in your ranch. And if it becomes an ending, you can consider that to be the ending of your operation as well. So I just want to throw out today, I brought up the futures and the commodities right now. Oil's down. We're at 76 on West Texas, and Brent's at 70, almost 80. And in that all being down, corn is at 467. So good for those guys, finally getting a little bump in the world. And then I'll skip all the other goodies except wheat because that's a 639. So wheat's down a bit today, but both lives and feeders are up.
Yeah, feeders have been choppy, trading sideways. Corn's been super volatile, but it's kind of interesting. And I did not read my marketing stuff, so I'm poorly equipped this week to kind of give the beef and live and feeder cattle update.
You know, it's one thing, and we don't need to get into the politics of it because I don't want this to be a divisive podcast. I want this to be something that everybody, whether you're in the U.S. Cattlemen's or NCBA or RCAF, I think we spend more time fighting with each other than we do. Nobody's better at fighting the cattlemen than the cattlemen.
This is the Running on Grass Kumbaya podcast.
That's right. That's right. But this thing that's come out about MCOOL, mandatory country of origin labeling.
But you said the naughty word.
Yeah. So, it's so interesting to read it on Facebook, Instagram, X. Everybody's got an opinion. And, I don't know that anybody's right or wrong. I think it's like everything. It's a gray area, and there's probably places for it and places that in different scenarios it should be in and out.
This wasn't prepared.
No, not even a little bit. Logan, it's not on our list.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about talking with him, and you just never know where you're going next. I'll tell you this, I don't have an opinion on it. I've seen really good arguments from both sides, very well structured, so don't know enough at this point.
I get to play and see a lot of the numbers that most people just, they're all look upable, but they get thrown in front of me a few times a year at being the Wyoming guy for U.S. Meat Export Federation. And there's compelling arguments for all sides of it. And I think that the cattle industry just needs to stop throwing stones at each other and figure out how we can all work together a little better.
That's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. We're less than 1% of the population feeding the rest of the 99%. And we seem to be able to spend more time throwing rocks at each other than outside.
It's definitely gotten the social media keyboard warriors just at each other's throats.
Yep. We have a lot to talk about. Let's talk about cover crops.
So let's go into the dryland corn grazing first, because that's kind of top of mind. I'm planning it right now. We haven't had a rain since before the 4th of July, and we went a little long corn this year, had some cover crop residue, had some good wheat stubble residue to plant into it. And it's slowly going down. And you can tell this by, if you wake up at 6 a.m. and you get out to the ranch and the corn is rolled up and singed on the edges in the morning, it's given up. Corn naturally rolls its leaves to conserve water in the afternoon, and then opens them in the morning to catch the sun. And so if it can't unroll them in the morning, it's not a healthy plant that is going to produce good grain. So that's kind of your number one indicator for when you can graze it. And I went ahead and called the adjuster, and she will be coming out when I get back next week. And they will generally release them. What we'll do is we'll put, sometimes they'll just zero them out. Other times we have to put panels out and put a few test plots in there just so they can wait and see. I have several fields where I'm certain by the time I get back that they will be able to not zero out, but it'll be a single digit appraisal. And it was 103 yesterday and missed another rain shower. So we'll be grazing them off. We did it in 2022 as well, and it works out pretty good. We'll be grazing it. It's great feed. We do not put on a lot of nitrogen fertilizer, so nitrates are normally not an issue for us. But it's a pretty good feed. It will produce the same grazing yield as our warm season cover crops, but it just doesn't produce the same residue because of the population that we plant.
I'm not the farming guy. I'm trying to learn as I go along here. Is that going to be a grazable feed, or what do you do with what you have grown?
Yeah, we will graze it off. We'll treat it exactly like a warm season cover crop, and it works out really well. You get the check from insurance, and then you get the feed. So it's in a drought. It is one of the upsides about being a dryland grain farmer, is that you get the feed for your cattle when you need it the most.
So it doesn't last as long as a regular once it gets grown as much. So what's the percentage or time difference in like a day graze and how many acres you're on? What does that look like?
So we'll get about 100 or more in some instances steer days an acre, yearling heifer days an acre, but our removal rate is more like 80%. Versus when we graze our warm season covers, our removal rate is more like 25%. So it's kind of the inverse of that. And then we can go in and drill wheat behind it. And we did that in 2022 and it worked out very well. So it gets wheat back into the rotation. But we treat it really just like a warm season cover crop, but we just have the utilization be a little bit more. The one problem that you run into is you just got sure you keep them out of the neighbor's cornfield because they look over at the fence line. They're like, oh, that looks like a delicious pie over there. And when they're not grazing corn, they don't necessarily see it as a feed. So that's one of the challenges. You need to have a good fence between the cornfield you're grazing and the neighbor's cornfield, a damn good hot fence.
And you need to watch the nitrates?
We don't. Most people do. And when I get a phone call about this, and you're welcome to call me, that's the number one question that I get, is it safe? And I can tell you, we test ours every year and we've never had a nitrate problem. But you could go across the fence line, walk into my neighbors, and you could have a nitrate problem. It's related to soil type and nitrogen fertilizer use. So I always tell people you got to test, but we've never had a nitrate problem on our place. And I do know John Maddox has grazed with some yearlings, some pretty high nitrate stuff. He is more tolerant of the nitrates than a lot of guys. And I've spoken with him about that as well. And he's grazed some stuff that would cause a man to pause. So you can kind of push it if you're not dealing with bred stock.
That's all stuff when I send cows to you that I don't even think about. And I'm glad you're paying attention to it.
We thought we were going to be able to take your heifers on cover crops, and my warm season cover crops are by and large knee high right now, and they should be about 12 feet tall. So having that dryland corn to go on to is going to be great because we will still graze our warm season covers, but we really want to manage the residue on those. And so my warm season covers, and when they're challenged like this, I'll probably get 25 to 35 steer days per acre, so a quarter. But our utilization goes from 25 to significantly higher.
There's so much I don't know about grazing stocks. Grazing alfalfa has become about the only thing I've started to figure out, which has its own challenges for sure, but has more to do with heat and water and wind and dew and rain, and those kind of things seem to have more to do, and I'm not as worried about specifics like nitrates.
Yeah, and nitrate is, as far as it's more complicated. I was having lunch with Trey Patterson, and we were talking about nitrates. This was 10 years ago. Robert Brochus and I went up to the padlock, and we got to spend a day with Trey. He just graciously was like, yeah, sure, I'll show you around. Like, I'll personally show you around the padlock. A great experience. And he is a PhD from the University of Nebraska, and I brought up nitrates and nitrogen fertilizer. And he kind of explained to me how it works and translates and what happens. And I was just amazed that he was that smart. I was thoroughly impressed. I will not be able to give you the same rundown that he gave me on how nitrates and nitrogen fertilizer are related. Call Trey if you want to know the answer to that.
Well, I have a lot to visit with Trey about. I haven't followed up on the last time I told you I needed to talk to him, and feel like there are not enough hours in the day for all the phone calls that I need to make and do all the other pieces. I think I figured I average 35 to 40 phone calls every day.
Yeah, you're a talker. That's one of the reasons I think this show goes so well is you bring it out in people. You're a good conversationalist. I was just telling the crew, I am not typically very good on the phone. I don't get the when to talk, when to shut up, when to hang up. I just don't understand that. That's also something I inherited from my father. And the nice thing with you is you just draw it out of me and other people. You've got a good phone sense. And you make people like me, like we figure it out. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like when me and my father are on the phone, it's pretty clunky because we're both terrible at it. So that's definitely a skill that you have, Eamon. I just wanted to acknowledge
Well,
it.
like you, I got it from my father. He would rather get on the phone and have a phone call than do an email. And I'm the same. When I shoot an email, it's often the same as shooting a quick text like, thanks, got it. That's more my email style. But if you want to get on the phone, we can get into the details of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is an absolute skill that is very valuable, especially in our world today.
I just feel like I can get it and remember it so much better if I have had the conversation rather than typing it for some reason. But if I write something down longhand, I can hold on to it better than if I type it.
I completely agree. And then, as you know, I love in-person conversation, and then I need a note card to take notes and write down little tidbits. And that's a winning combination for me. In-person conversation with note cards.
I've gotten better about carrying a notepad or something with me, but Logan always has a wine glass pad sticking out of his pocket when he's at a meeting, and he'll just whip it out when he hears something interesting.
Some people have picked it up for me, and I have to pass it on. I know Robert and some other people have taken it from me. I stole it from Dwayne Mays at Ogallala Livestock, who was part owner for decades. And he's one of those guys where he's fielding probably 40, 50 phone calls a day, and he has to sort cattle and take phone calls. You can't just put your phone in the pickup if you're Dwayne Mays and then go make those 40 or 50 calls at the end of the day because you'd be up till midnight. And so I just observed him. He would sort cattle, take phone calls, and then hang up the phone and immediately pull. He kept a stack of them in his pocket like that. And he'd immediately pull one of them out. And these were just the sale barn cards. And he'd take a page of notes and he'd put it back in, and he'd do that several times, like when he was sorting. And I was like, that guy has it figured out. I said, Dwayne, can I get a package of those? Like, that's a brilliant idea. And after using them for a while, I'm like, I can improve these. We can have more lines. I don't need the sale barn stuff. And so picked it up from Dwayne Mays. And then what's funny is later I learned that my dad always carried a note card in his pocket, but I just didn't remember it until I did that. And he's like, oh yeah, I used to always have to. And I was like, oh, I remember now. I just forgot about it.
I like to keep, even in my pickup, if I don't have one of those kind of note cards, then I like to have at least a sticky note thing that I can write things down, and then I can kind of keep using different sticky notes. And some of them are for cattle numbers, some of them are for projects, some of them are for projects that either we're doing and we need the stuff for. And some of them are like, hey, I have this idea for a project, or I want to get these cows sorted out, or whatever it is. So I've kind of keep all these different lists going all the time, but I know my brain works a lot better if I'm on the road. Even like if I'm sitting in the office, it's like my brain almost goes stagnant. Like I don't even know what to think about because I don't get good work done there. But if I get my pickup and I'm driving around, boy, my mind just flows and I can get tons of stuff out, and the cost is fuel.
Windshield time is valuable, especially if you can have that windshield time with a spouse, your dad, your mom, a key employee, and you just got a few hours and you can just marinate on stuff. You know, it's not like, hey, let's go meet for 15 minutes and hash things out. It's like, no, let's go drive 3 hours to Schuler Angus
Yep.
and think about what we're going to think about.
It's such good stuff to spend time, especially with your key employees that are the ones helping you make the decisions. And they're like, that's a great idea, but maybe we don't have time for that.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to hit on a little bit. So I put up this post the other day, and I think it's at 130 or 40,000 views now.
No kidding. Which post?
I had a video of me talking about what we're doing with our cows on the national forest, and where we had the camp was actually on some private land, but it opens up in the national forest, and there's no distinction of land there. It's just one big pasture. And I have a guy living in a cow camp there, and all it is it's a sheep camp, and it's a guy living in this camp, and he has a couple horses, and he checks the cows and makes sure we don't have bear problems or wolf problems.
I saw it.
Yeah. So, I've had a few comments of, is this on public land? Is that the same public land that I'm allowed to use? And it's very interesting to hear people's thoughts on or perception of, ranchers using public land. And you and I have talked about it a lot. The cost of public land is significantly cheaper than it is to use private land, but it comes with all the headaches of anybody in the world can go out there and use it. It is cheaper, yes, but we pay for all the infrastructure just like we do on our private land. And I can't just go and do it because that's the right thing to do and it's a good idea and we're going to put in a water tank. I have to go through a year or more of, sometimes it's a decade of paperwork, getting your BLM or Forest Service person to get through the paperwork. And that depends on who's your person. If they're great, then it's done. And if they're not good, then it takes literally, they can spend their career and you get one project done maybe. So it's very complicated to run on public land, but we pay taxes on it just like you do. And you don't live on it, you don't live near it, and you can go use it. If you're ever out west and around public land, you can go put your camper on it and stay there for, I think it's 14 days. And then you can move half a mile down the road and set up camp again and stay there for another 14 days. So I can do the same thing, but I'm also been paying rent. And we move our sheep camps and camps around at least every 14 days, but usually faster because we're moving the animals around faster than that. So they're usually somewhere for like a week maybe, and then we're moving again.
Yeah, and I think the public today is more in tune with the fact that grazing is a service to the greater public than it was maybe in the 90s when it was viewed as grazing was negative. I've seen this, a cow grazing a forest isn't bad for the environment. It is the environment. Like, it's just the perception has changed. And especially with the fires and the management of some of these, I think that the general public now agrees that grazing is good for everyone involved.
Yeah, I hope that's the perception. I would say there's still a lot of people out there that still have that 90s mentality of let's not touch the forests. But then once they're dead, we don't want to let them burn either. And everything, fire's bad, forest management's bad, every kind of management is bad, just leave it alone. But once you stop letting the nature of lightning strike hit that forest, you've now totally stopped everything that you wanted to do to leave it natural. Well, now it's trying to burn and now you won't let it do that either. So there's a lot of pieces to it, but when you like to have the reservoirs and the dams and all of that stuff, well, that was paid for by a private rancher that paid to fix that public land reservoir for their livestock. Well, the deer and the elk and the bears and everything else drinks out of that too. So there's a very symbiotic relationship there. And the government was smart to figure out, well, these guys will pay for that. We don't have to use government money to pay for these upgrades on our public land. And we can get all the benefit for all the pieces we care about too. So it's just interesting, but I think you're totally right. And these guys in California are really showing how great it is that they're using goats and sheep and even cattle to graze different places and be able to manage fire risk.
And not just fire risk, grazing a blade of grass. Grass was designed to be grazed, and there are exclusion cages that they put out on different forest permits for grazing, and it's dead. The soil is dead. The grass is dead. They're just morbid plant matter on top, and there's nothing green growing where you don't graze.
Yep, totally right. One thing we didn't get into today, and maybe we're going to bounce back to it here, everybody, is I didn't let Logan talk about the different breeds of what these African breeds he's talking about are and what they do, their kind of specialties. I did want to make sure that everybody knew what Logan was talking about when he talks about these different breeds and what they can do for your herd.
Yeah, let's hit on that next week or in a future podcast, because I really want to go into it, and it's going to be a big project of mine going forward. And so we're going to be talking a lot about it on the podcast. So I'm going to be forced to talk about genetics when all I really want to talk about is grass and water tanks. And it'll be fun, and I'm going to learn a lot. But let's hit on that next time, and we'll hit on some of the breeds that I'm looking at, what Jonathan Zeitzman, some of the mixes that he's created, and Bosma, some where he got started, and then just how to combine them and to get that maximum heterosis. But I think that's going to be a great topic for the future.
Okay, perfect. One thing we haven't brought up in a while, let's just real quick close everything out. What's a good book you've read or reading that you want to pass on to everybody?
I'm just about done with the Goggins book. Man, it's dense. I started that a long time ago. I was thinking you and I should reread Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and do a segment on that sometime in the near future. I think the middle-aged men, which is our target demographic, I'm finding, and that Stoic literature, I think there's a lot of benefit to it, and could get a lot out of us discussing what we get from it and how we use it in our lives. From Ben Gottfried, his suggestion.
Yeah, that'd be great. I have not read it, so that'll be a first time for me through it.
You're about to have your mind blown. It's one of the best books.
I want everybody to know that I bought Logan a book and he has not got into it yet, but it is also dense. It'll be a winter read when things slow down a little bit for you.
100%. Yeah, we do need to get books back on the docket.
Yep. That's the uttermost part of the earth. And it's a great one, but it's dense. You can get it on Amazon. I've never seen it in a bookstore. It's an old book, but it's hundreds and hundreds of pages. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for listening, and we've appreciated all the viewership.
Keep running on grass, Eamon. Have a good one.
Adios.